What's up, guys? Rotowan here, Mike Alexander, talking key decisions for UFC Brooklyn, also known as UFC on ESPN Plus One. Apparently, they're going to make us do math now. Got a super fight in the works for this one. Yet another super fight. Hopefully, this is the last one we see for a while. Takes away from how special it truly is to get somebody to come down, challenge it at another weight class for the belt. But here we got Henry Cejudo, 135 champ, taking on TJ Dillashaw, coming down as the champ from 145. Interesting fight here. Interesting clash of styles. Obviously, with a 5-rounder and two really skilled fighters, one of these guys has got to be in your lineup. Who are you going to take? Dillashaw at 8,900, Henry Cejudo 7,300. It's tempting to go Cejudo because of the price. We saw last time out what happens when a world-class fighter at a really discounted price can execute their game plan when Amanda Nunes just demolished Chris Cyborg. That's always in play. When you've got two of the best facing each other, you really aren't going to know who's going to get off better than the other one until it happens. So if you're building, multiple lineups, definitely want to have some Cejudo. I lean Dillashaw here. I just think he is a better fighter in most of the areas that this fight is going to take place. He's a much better striker. He's a solid wrestler. He's not gold medal Henry Cejudo level, but he's definitely a solid wrestler. He's got both defensive and offensive wrestling. Really strong grappler. He's good on the ground. He can escape trouble. He can put other people in trouble. But when it comes down to it, I think he's going to execute on the feet. Knockout power, like I don't think Cejudo has really faced. Not a lot of guys have his kind of knockout power in the weight classes at 145 and 135. He's really efficient in his striking as far as, mechanics. That's really what gave Cory Garbrandt so much trouble was, he wanted to swing and throw haymakers with TJ, and TJ is just going to land quicker than you will. Can Cejudo win the fight? Yes. If he executes a perfect game plan like he did against Demetrius Johnson to win the belt. That's a lot to ask, to do in 2 straight fights and against 2 straight great champions. So all in all, I would lean heavily towards TJ. There's also the weight cut factor that, everybody's kind of scared. He came down a weight class and everybody says he looks, like a cross-country runner and he's all sucked in. And I don't know. It sounds like he had a fairly routine weight cut. He was right on his mark. He was really managing it. TJ's an absolute professional. I'm not scared by that. So if you think Dillashaw's the better fighter, 8,900 or the betting odds, you're getting a pretty good value. One note on the betting odds, if you want to get plus betting value on TJ inside the distance or by TKO, which is probably his more likely path to finishing the fight before a decision, you get plus odds. So a nice tidbit there from Jason Shandel, MMA by the Numbers. He put out in his podcast, and I thought that was really smart. As always with these key decisions, I'm going to give you my lean, but they're key decisions for a reason. If you feel the other way, don't hesitate to go that way. It's your lineup. Do what you think is going to win you the money. All right, next key decision. We got 3 top-tier fighters here, top-price fighters. Who can we trust in our lineup? Greg Hardy, 9,500, Gregor Gillespie, 9,400, and Cory Sandhagen, 9,300. Out of those 3, we know the most about Gillespie. He's got an incredible wrestling game, really, really aggressive, landing something like 7 takedowns per round with 14 attempts. Those are huge numbers. He's a former champion, NCAA champion, and he utilizes his wrestling game in a way that a lot of people don't. He's not going to hold people down. He's going to take you down. He's going to advance position. He grapples, generates a ton of advances that way. People do get up on him and results in a lot of takedowns, but that's because he doesn't sit there and hold people. He's looking to get to a submission. He's looking to get to a positive position to land strikes. So that is that's what we're looking for. We're looking for people to pile up stats. He's a guy that can do that. So I trust him the most. There is the puncher's chance with Yancy Medeiros, but Medeiros probably has to get off more volume than he's going to be able to land. against Gillespie. Yes, Gillespie can be hit. He will mix it up on the feet a little bit. He doesn't have terrible striking. He's actually got decent striking, but Medeiros is the better striker. If he were to abandon his wrestling game, it could go poorly. I don't see Gillespie doing that. That's all he's shown us in the UFC octagon is I'm going to take you down and impose my will. So I like him. 9,500, Greg Hardy. Tough to trust. All signs point to him getting an early knockout. Yes, we know he's a world-class athlete coming from the NFL, everything else aside. The problem here that I see, and a lot of people have talked about this, is if Hardy, only lands a dozen strikes and gets an early KO, no advances, no multiple knockdowns, he might only score 90-ish points. At 9,500, you need to be, like 110 at least. I don't see this fight going many rounds. I don't see there being a lot of action. Could we see a step up in competition result in that for Hardy? Of course. We could also see it go the other way, and all of a sudden he can't just pancake people and throw with unbridled aggression that's led to his first round knockouts. I don't think that's going to happen here. That will happen to him at some point. He's going to hit a test eventually, so you got to be careful with him in your lineups going forward. I think he's an okay cash play here, just from a knockout and get a first or second round finish standpoint. But out of the three, the one I like the least. Then you got Cory Sandhagen. With those two guys right above him, a little, he's going to have lower ownership, I think. Not quite talked about as much as those guys, but he's a high output fighter. He's gonna bring a high volume of strikes. He's aggressive. Dude is just a brawler. He's the guy who his first UFC fight came a week after his prior fight, where he took no punishment and just KO'd his opponent. And he was like, yeah, sure, I'll get back in the ring. Put me in there. So you love a fighter like that. So being that he may be able to add some more volume striking, maybe some grappling as well, I think he's a nice play as well out of those three guys. Probably my second favorite to Gillespie. Next fight we need to make a decision in. Alexander Hernandez taking on Donald Cowboy Cerrone. Really good fight here. Cowboy's enjoying a little bit of a renaissance. I was all over Cowboy last time out against Mike Perry because Mike Perry has zero fight IQ. You put him in there with Cowboy, that's a recipe for disaster for Perry. And that proved to be the case. Cowboy does have sneaky submission game. He's got a ton of submissions to his credit. He's a good striker, good counter striker. He is a good fighter. We've seen plenty of him in the octagon. He's got some of the most fights in octagon history. My concerns for Cowboy in this fight against Hernandez, he's coming down to 155 from 170. It's going to take away from an already suspect chin a little bit. Hernandez, I've been saying it all week, he's a buzzsaw. Like, that's the word to describe him. He's strong. He's got great speed. We saw in his debut, he went in there and just blitzed. I forget his name, but early first round knockout because he's just got a lot of power and a lot of athleticism. Next time out against OAM, who's one of the best athletes in the division, he out-wrestled him, out-muscled him, and not a lot of people have made OAM look anywhere near as bad as Alex Hernandez did. So major concerns for Cowboy here. I think Hernandez is going to win this fight in dramatic fashion. I don't think Cowboy's chin can stand up to it. Sure, he could catch him on the ground if Hernandez does, get it into Cowboy's guard, maybe gets a little lazy, isn't ready for somebody who's got Cowboy's fight IQ. But we have no reason to doubt Hernandez at this point. We don't have a lot from him, but I think everything we've seen is a very positive output. So I'm betting Hernandez here and by finish. Not if you're building multiple lineups, again, got to have some Cowboy shares. Can go the other way. It's a nice fight to have some of both. Next spot we got to talk about. What paydowns can we trust? You've got not a lot on this card. Usually there's one or two fighters down there that you can at least say they've got decent shots at pulling out a victory. I don't see that on this card, quite to where my comfort level should be. And it's good to have, at least a few. I don't love many dogs on this card in the sub 7,500 range. The two I do like, Alves Moreira. He is facing Merrifield, who's a really aggressive striker. He's going to look to finish you early and bring a blitzkrieg. Moreira is a submission specialist, by contrast with really crappy striking. One of the oldest clashes in MMA history. Grappler versus striker. I don't think he's going to win this fight. I think Menafield is going to finish him early with strikes because that's just the more likely outcome. Unless the other guy is an opposing wrestler, the striking is probably the better bet. But given his price, 7,100, and his inside the distance odds, you're not going to find those kind of odds down here anywhere close to it. You've got another unproven guy on the other side. I don't hate it. If you need somebody down here, if he wins, it's going to be a first or second round finish in all likelihood, some grappling, maybe a takedown. So I like playing both sides of this one. I think the winner is probably got a good shot to be on the optimal lineup. Other paydown I like a little bit, Dustin Ortiz. Tough coming in here. He's fought Joseph Benavidez before. Hard to expect a different outcome. I think Ortiz has improved, and Benavidez, probably his improvement is minimal, if not in the other direction. He's hasn't been as active lately. He smoked Alex Perez the last time out, but Alex Perez really didn't offer much resistance. He got him on the ground, and Perez just looked like a fish out of water. He was lost. He couldn't get up. He was getting tagged on the ground. Really got finished twice because the ref kind of stepped in, stepped out. But it was a sad output as far as the grappling for Perez. That's not Dustin Ortiz. Dustin Ortiz is really hard to finish both in submissions and strikes. Ortiz lasted like a round and a half with Alexander Pantoja on his back, who's got one of the best rear naked chokes in the game. This fight's got a good shot to go to a decision. And with that, I don't hate Ortiz's wrestling. If he can get his wrestling off, he just needs to sway two judges to score his wrestling a little bit better than Joe B's striking aggression. And he could come away with a decision at 7,200. All we need is a win here. And if that happens through wrestling, it could actually be a really solid score. So those are the two guys that I'm going to include as a pay down because you need one of them. I'm not quite going below them. I just don't think any of those guys have good enough shot to pull it out. There are some people right above them that are interesting, but for true pay downs, those are probably the two I'm going to focus on. Last decision of the night for the key decisions. Who can you take in Dennis Bermudez versus Tay Edwards? Bermudez actually coming in as a dog, which is shocking to me, 8,000, and Edwards coming in at 8,200. And the line's kind of holding at that. Bermudez is a way better fighter than Tay Edwards. Edwards comes from a wrestling background. He's shown none of it in his fighting career, his MMA career at all. It's a big difference between being an MMA wrestler and a guy who has a wrestling background. He doesn't have striking output. He wants to, take people out with one-punch knockouts. He's got that ability, which is a concern. Bermudez's chin has definitely been cracked. And he's been in some wars recently, but he's weathered the storms. He is a slight risk to be knocked out here, but his wrestling is definitely better than Edwards. If I had to take a guess, he's got good striking. He's definitely probably going to bring more output striking. He probably has a better counter game than Edwards. So I really don't see any reason to be on Edwards in this fight. He got outclassed by, let's face it, a low-rung UFC fighter in his debut against Don Madge, and really was lost. So now you're going to get in there with Dennis Bermudez, who's a guy who's got a ton of UFC experience and an absolute grinder. Yeah, I'll take Bermudez at a dog odds any day. Like I said, there is some risk with the chin. Bermudez also coming up in weight from 145 to 155 here. Don't love that. Maybe that helps with the chin, so that could be the one positive. But Bermudez was already at a size disadvantage most of the time anyway. now he's coming up a class. Not a huge size disadvantage here. Height's not that different. I think a 2-inch difference. The reach is a 6-inch difference. If Edwards was going to utilize it, that could be a concern. I don't see him utilizing it. So lots of Bermudez for me this week. I think he's a really solid foundation for cash games and some slight salary relief for your GPP lineups as well. That's what I got, guys. Enjoy the fights. Hopefully ESPN puts together a nice product here, and the UFC has a home going forward. And as always, may the sports be with you.